This is The Sports Life.
Osterman leaves it for Tyson for three in the tank. It's good. We're tied. 4.6 seconds to play. Inbounds pass Blackwell with three, with two, with one. Blackwell for the win. Good! John Blackwell for three. John Blackwell for the win.
What a shot by John Blackwell.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler, the sounds of Matt LePay, in one of the craziest games of the season as Wisconsin Magic continues. First, the win over Michigan, and then a last-second shot to beat a Minnesota team that was convinced they were going to overtime.
That's right.
Well, we have a pretty interesting show this week. Obviously, one of the things we're going to talk about is Indiana football. There's something different as they go for a national championship.
Unbelievable story. That's going to be a lot of fun to dive into and preview as Indiana plays Miami. But a couple of other pretty unbelievable things have happened recently in the Big Ten. How about Braden Smith, the new king when it comes to assists in Big Ten men's basketball history? He's north of 900 now as he chases the all-time record in the country, period. Bobby Hurley's mark in college basketball. We'll be catching up with Bobby Riddell about Braden Smith, and also the Huskers keep on rolling. 17-0, they're still undefeated. We're going to be rejoined by Justin Fromer to talk about how the Huskers have continued to this point, win every single game.
Well, in terms of sounds of the week, Dalton, what do you got?
Well, let's start off with something you mentioned, Wisconsin. That's one great moment they had with that buzzer beater from John Blackwell against Minnesota. But earlier, the better moment probably was against number 2 Michigan, handing the Wolverines their first loss of the season. Here's what it sounded like with the voice of the Badgers, Matt LePay.
Hands off to Gale. Contested three. Off the rim. No. Rebound. Johnson. No. And the Badgers win it. They take down Michigan in Ann Arbor. What a fantastic performance from Greg Gard's Wisconsin Badgers as they send Michigan down for the first time this season.
Think about this. Wisconsin goes to Nebraska. They got, hammered by 30 or 40, something like that?
Right.
And then they go to Ann Arbor, and they do the impossible. They beat Michigan.
Unbelievable. What a time it is for Wisconsin basketball, really making a comeback here in this past week. And afterwards, you can imagine they'd be all smiles after handing the Wolverines their first loss. On CBS, John Blackwell and, frankly, the entire Badger basketball team joined Bill Raftery afterwards in what was a really neat moment that I think warmed the hearts of all college basketball fans.
Hey, guys, what would you call this game? Not bad, huh?
Yes, sir.
Hey, coming in, obviously you didn't lack confidence, but your performance and preparation had to be extraordinary.
Yeah, I think as a group, we're not quitters. You know, we went down, lost a couple games early, but we didn't quit. We kept fighting, and that's what we are as a group. We're just fighters, and we're going to fight all day. And I told this group, let's be the villain of today. You know, let's come in here, let's be the villain.
Well, they made everybody in the Big Ten feel better. I know that. But anyway, what a great moment for the Wisconsin Badgers. And you know what, Dalton? That's how crazy basketball is collegiately. And I guess that's the beauty of it because you really down deep don't know.
No, and especially this day and age, it feels like all the results, everything that you had in your mind, prefixed notions, it's just kind of out the window. Anybody can beat anybody any given night, and it's pretty fun to see just if you're a neutral fan following along with plenty of these games. The final sound that we're going to tackle goes to West Lafayette. Look, we mentioned Braden Smith. What an incredible honor for him to be the all-time assist leader in Big Ten men's basketball history. Matt Painter talked a little bit about, aside the record, just what makes Braden Smith so special, and this sound comes courtesy of Purdue Boilermakers on Sports Report.
Oh, he's the best, man. He's the best I've been around. And the way PJ orchestrates our offense and talks him through, some different things, like they've been a very good team. And at times you got to back up, and you're like a fan. You're just watching. And but no, he puts the defense in a real bind.
Pretty high praise coming from his coach, Matt Painter. And Coach Painter mentioned something else, Dalton, that depending on how far Purdue goes in the NCAA tournament, he could also set the record for the most minutes played ever in college basketball history.
It's unreal, isn't it?
Is he tired yet?
It got to be, right?
I think he might be. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the greatest stories ever in college sports history, the Indiana football team. But first, a break right here on the Sports Life.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Every kid deserves a chance to feel safe, to have their own bed, to be loved and cared for. That's why I love my foster parents. They make me feel like part of the family.
Raise hope and foster dreams for one of 13,000 Michigan children in foster care. Visit michigan.gov/hope for a home or call 855-MICH-KIDS. That's 855-MICH-KIDS. Sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
You hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you. Well, we should probably put Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Star on the payroll because he seems to be on every show talking about this football team he covers, the Indiana Hoosiers. And before we talk about what's going on here as they head to the title game, for you, the experience, Zach, what has it been like? Because you're walking down territory that's never been traveled before.
No, I mean, it really hasn't. I mean, not even, it's not even necessarily one of those things where we can reach back into the recesses of, pre-World War I history and find some example of something that's happened. I mean, there's only been one other undefeated season in Indiana history, and that was when we still called it the old Western Conference. And, that this is the first 12-0 season, a first perfect season. Even that 45 season, there was a tie, obviously a first Heisman Trophy winner, a first win in a Big Ten championship game, a first Rose Bowl win, and on and on and on. And it's been, as you can imagine, it's been challenging, but it's been the fun kind of challenging to try and sort of wrap arms around and take our readers, many of whom, frankly, at this point we've seen on the road. You've seen some of these crowds that Indiana's taken to Pasadena and Atlanta, and I suspect will to Miami too. Really take them kind of behind the scenes and try to tell the story of not just what's happening, but how all this has happened. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, in this story that you and others are trying to tell, look, I was sitting down the other day and we were talking about Indiana football, and it was actually with a coach, and I said, I think this is the greatest sports story of my lifetime, maybe ever. I mean, does that feel too strong? If Indiana finishes this out with a national championship, could this be the greatest sports story of all time?
I think certainly, at least in college football, it's got an argument, and I don't know how you compare it to, something like the Miracle on Ice or, things like that. Obviously, every one of those stories is going to kind of have its own distinct kind of origin and history. But I think what stands this one out in maybe our collective conscience is college football was kind of supposed to be the one American team sport where this wasn't possible. Until very recently, unlike most professional sports, certainly professional team sports in this country, and even to a certain extent because of the nature of the way that their postseasons were structured, high school and college sports, there was no parity mechanism built into college football. And there was a perception that with some rare exceptions, you kind of were what you were in the sport. And if you wanted to elevate yourself past that, it was going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of patience, a lot of setback. If anything, Indiana maybe was kind of on that journey a little bit when you think about a couple of bowl games under Kevin Wilson, a couple of winning seasons under Tom Allen, and it feeling like maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that was what we told ourselves. Programs like Indiana or Kansas or North Carolina or Duke or Vanderbilt and so forth, the best they could sort of hope for. And that eventually that success would probably become their enemy because someone else would replicate it more effectively, or someone else would come hire their coach, and everything would kind of go back to zero. What I think we underestimated was the extent to which factors like the portal and player compensation, be it rev share or name, image, and likeness, would become, in a way, those sort of parity mechanisms. And it has, I think, upended Indiana being, the vehicle for this, the way we think about what is possible in college football. And we've expanded the playoff. We've made it easier to flip a roster. We've made it easier, at least at some programs, Big Ten programs, SEC programs, to maybe get a coach and really entrench the resources around them such that they will stay, rather than, if all this had happened 10, 15 years ago, maybe Indiana's worried about losing the head coach that achieves it. That is, I think Indiana is a thoroughly, is it the best sort of sports story of our lifetimes? Maybe. I think it is certainly a thoroughly modern American college football story. This is what is possible. These are all the ways that the old conventions in the sport have been overturned by the last 5 to 7 years of, frankly, I don't think it's unfair to call it revolution in Indiana. I wrote this, maybe feeling a little bit overly poetic at one point this season, is kind of the sport's ultimate revolutionary.
Well, if I can ask you to be a little bit more poetic, can you explain Fernando Mendoza growing up around Miami, Florida, gets ready to take on the hometown team that never recruited him, and he gets to do it in Miami for the national championship game? I mean, the Cuban goes back into Miami, Florida, and maybe the most Cuban football game ever played in college football. But there is something poetic about Fernando going home for this.
No, I think that's fair. And that is one of the sort of mini storylines to sort of tug on in this game. His father played with Mario Cristobal at Columbus High School in Miami. There are people who know Columbus a lot better than I do, but it is sort of heavily entrenched, is my understanding, in the Cuban community, a Cuban American community in Miami. Mendoza himself, has deep roots in sort of Cuba and in the Cuban community. He's talked about the inspiration of not just his parents, but his grandparents. I think anyone who saw his Heisman speech, he spoke to his grandparents in Spanish during that speech. And, I think obviously he and his family, I think a lot of the people who are involved at this ground level are going to be keen to, keep that sort of turned down just so that it doesn't become an unnecessary distraction in these last few days of the season. But, this is the same city that held whose airport held a sort of going away celebration at the gate for the Mendoza family when they were flying to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony a little over a month ago. It is going to be impossible to remove Fernando Mendoza's connections to the city of Miami, to, at least to some extent, Miami football, where I believe he was recruited, but only as a preferred walk-on out of high school. And just to, the sort of Cuban-American community there that as he has talked about, means a lot to him, means a lot to his family, which has, sort of sprawling roots itself in the area. You're going to see, I mentioned this sort of scene to a few people that weren't there at the end of the tunnel at Lucas Oil Stadium coming off the field after the Ohio State game in the Big Ten Championship. There were probably at least 36 members of Mendoza's family, or at least maybe some of them were friends, some of them were family, but you could tell many of them were part of the Mendoza family, waiting for Fernando and his brother Alberto and their teammates, and their roommates stopped and said hello and things like that. That gives you a sense for just how large and how tight-knit the family is, and I suspect there's going to be an even greater presence at Hard Rock Stadium next Monday night.
Zach, this is probably an overworked question, but Indiana football has no more advantage than any other program. It has NIL, it has a transfer portal, all bets are off kind of thing. And so Indiana, probably not as much money as Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama, any of those kind of places, hires this fellow who somehow has this magic wand. What has been the key to what the head coach at Indiana has been able to do? What is his magic?
Well, I think there are a few things. First of all, I think he would tell you that being in the modern Big Ten has provided him with at least enough resources to be competitive. That's not just in roster building, but also staffing. He's retained both of his coordinators. He's retained his head strength coach, who he's talked about many times is so important to his process. Really, he's kept a lot of his staff together. He'll anytime you mention his coordinators, he'll pivot to the fact that he's kept his recruiting staff together. And I think that's important, because when we tend to sort of praise Curt Cignetti for his ability to identify, recruit, and develop talent, I think he will pivot to having people that are really familiar with, having spent months and years with him, what kinds of players, what kinds of attributes, what kinds of skill sets Cignetti is looking for, so that before the recruiting process even gets to the staff or the head coach, there's already been kind of a sifting process that has really sort of narrowed the field down to, maybe those players that Cignetti and his coaches, his coordinators would want to focus on the most. But a lot of it really does have to do with Cignetti, his ability to identify what he wants in a player. And he'll talk about some of those things, some of the physical attributes, some of the mental attributes. You talk to his coordinators, they will tell you there are times when they've fallen in love with players. They've brought them to Cignetti after thorough evaluation, and he's found a reason why the answer is no on recruiting them. He can be very selective. But I think there's also an ability, and this certainly starts with Cignetti and extends down to his staff, to really teach very well and to understand that coaching is a lot more about communication and understanding your players' skills than trying to come up with clever ideas, whether it's X's and O's, whether it's player development. Cignetti and his staff have a remarkable ability to do that. The example I use all the time is, in the last 4 years, Indiana has had 4 separate starting quarterbacks. Every single one of them has at very least been all conference. I think 3 were players of the year in the conference. Obviously this year, Fernando Mendoza also won the Heisman Trophy. That is a track record, especially when you look at those quarterbacks. They're all a little different. Their skill sets are different. Their strengths and weaknesses are different. That is a track record that suggests a coach and a staff that are very dialed into not just here are the resources we need, but Here is how to spend those resources, for lack of a more artful term, smartly. And then when those resources turn into players and turn into a roster, how to develop it and deploy it effectively.
Well, final question, Zach. What's Indiana got to do to beat Miami and become the national champions?
Yeah, the two things that jump out to me most, number one, I think Miami can run the ball a little bit better than anybody Indiana's seen in a while. I mean, I would even include Ohio State maybe in that. And Indiana's sort of baseline superpower defensively this season has been stopping the run and then letting everything else that Indiana wants to do defensively, the way it rushes the passer, the way it gets penetration at the line of scrimmage, the way it moves its pieces around in the secondary, all of that starts with stopping the run. And I think Indiana's going to start by sort of closing off that Miami run game that maybe wasn't, it was at times prolific and explosive against Ohio State, against Ole Miss, was also just capable of keeping Miami on schedule and putting Carson Beck in favorable down and distance situations. I think Indiana's got to get the offense off schedule, to get Beck off schedule, to see if he can't force him to make some mistakes. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, it is a simple sort of analysis, but I think it is a meaningful one. Indiana's seen some really, really good defensive players, some really good, edge rushers this season. It's had a fair amount of success with shutting a number of those guys down. You look at, players with Oregon, you look at Ohio State, et cetera. Arvell Reese, for example, although Caden Curry, of course, has a pretty good game in the Big Ten championship as well. Ruben Bain might be as disruptive as any single player and certainly as any single pass rusher Indiana has seen this season. And I think that from Indiana's perspective, there may not have been an opponent on the schedule yet that could, from a defensive position, set and define the terms of a game the way Bain can if you lose control of him. And I mean that in terms of, I think we can get to the end of a game Monday night or elsewhere and say Ruben Bain had 8 tackles, 4 for loss, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and that turned out to be the difference in the game for Miami more than any other single individual contribution. I think Indiana's got to limit Bain, make somebody else on that Miami defense beat them. If they can control the run game and they can at very least keep Ruben Bain from really just sort of running amok on the other side of the ball, I think Indiana's got a good chance Monday night.
Well, as always, Zach, I appreciate it. Have a great trip, and I hope it's a good day for Indiana.
Thanks so much. Good talking to y'all. Thanks for having me.
Well, fun conversation with Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Stars. Indiana gets ready to play for a national championship in football. Before we throw a break, Dalton, after they win the semifinal game meeting Indiana, and they ask Signetti, we know, Coach, you're thinking about Miami. And he goes, no, I'm actually thinking about popping a beer open. How do you not love this guy, huh?
Sig's talking about beers. How about it?
I love it. I love it. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to focus on a guy who's in a big man game, but he's not too tall, but he's awfully good. Back with more in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
That ought to do it. Totally energy efficient.
Oh no, not again. This time, we're getting help.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the battle of energy efficiency improvements. In this corner, Mr. I can save money and do it on my own. And in this corner, Miss Let's get it done right with some help. Fight!
Or you could just go to avoidenergydrama.com. From sealing your home to helpful loan options, you'll find all the tips and tools you need to stop wasting energy and stay comfortable. Avoidenergydrama.com. Brought to you by Michigan Saves.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you can't measure it on your bathroom scale. Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own. You won't find a bipolar disorder by looking at a thermometer. Like many other health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a stick-on bandage. So the sooner you seek treatment, the better. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support. That's samhsa.gov/support.
Braden will drive to the rim, leaves it down low for Clough. Shot up, good! And there it is! The record breaker! Braden Smith has just become the Big Ten's all-time leader and career assist. Welcome into the record books.
Well, that was an historic call. Rob Blackman behind the mic for the Boilermakers of Purdue on their radio network as a guy that's too short to play. He's just not good enough, not big enough, not anything enough, but he's the best assist man in the history of the Big Ten, and when it's all said and done, maybe in the history of college basketball. And joining us to talk about the great job that Braden Smith has been doing with the Boilermakers is the analyst on the Purdue Radio Network, Bobby Riddell. And Bobby, how you doing?
Hi, Will. Hi, Dalton. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, always excited to get a chance to talk about Braden Smith and everything he's meant to Purdue and, of course, the tremendous accomplishment that he's already achieved this year as far as breaking that Big Ten assist record and breaking the record of a guy you guys know extremely well, Cassius Winston, who was an incredible player in his own right, wearing the green and white up there in East Lansing.
Well, before we talk a little bit about the skill set of Smith, can we go back to the recruitment? I was watching The Journey on BTN, and I had no idea that one of the great guards of all time at Purdue, Bruce Parkinson, was instrumental in recruiting him. Could you talk about that a little bit?
No problem. Sure. It's a fascinating aspect of the story because, ironically enough, it was Bruce Parkinson who held that all-time assist record at Purdue for so long. And Braden Smith is the guy who's eventually comes in and was able to break the Purdue all-time assist record last season, the one that Bruce had held for so long, and then broke that Big Ten assist record this year. And Bruce is an amazing guy, was clearly a tremendous player in his own right back when he was wearing the black and gold. And pretty awesome to think that, a former player of Bruce's liking was able to be such an instrumental piece of the recruitment with Braden Smith. It's been pretty well known now at this point that Braden was really under-recruited, didn't have a lot of Division I offers, especially at the high major level. I think Purdue may have been the only high major offer he got. And as it turns out, that was a mistake by a number of other programs because Braden has become one of the best point guards in Big Ten history. And Purdue was extremely fortunate that they had guys like Bruce Parkinson and others able to give Coach Painter little hints along the way about how good they thought Braden Smith was. And thankfully for Purdue, Coach Painter, after getting a chance to watch some film, because it was during that COVID time period, it was tough to get firsthand looks at a lot of these guys, from a recruiting standpoint. But thankfully, Coach Painter saw enough to offer that scholarship, and was nice that Braden accepted it right away because it's turned out phenomenal for Purdue.
Bobby, when we talk about the cradle of Boilermakers and some of the all-time greats, look, there's actually been a pretty good recent stretch of point guards there in the black and gold. One of them was P.J. Thompson, who, of course, is a part of the coaching staff. I'm curious the connection and the relationship between Thompson and Smith and Painter and Smith and this entire coaching staff that's helped to put him in this position.
It's awesome. It's a cool relationship that I get to be around a good amount as far as covering the team. PJ, just I think one of those kind of stars in the making when you think about how he's been working his way up through the coaching ranks. One of the best kind of coaches 30 and under you would think in the country, with Coach Painter handing the offensive coordinator kind of play calling duties to PJ a couple years ago. He's really took off with that role, and him and Coach Painter certainly collaborate quite a bit. I'm sure they keep Braden Smith very much in those conversations as well, with him being the quarterback of that offense at the point guard position. But it's really kind of PJ's show more often than not these days, and Coach Painter has so much trust in PJ to be able to push the right buttons and get the right players involved. And obviously you got to have great players on the floor executing the plays, but I think PJ does a tremendous job analyzing the opposition game in and game out and what their strengths and weaknesses are defensively and how we should attack that given our different personnel in year out. Of course, when we had Zach Edey, we were doing a lot of stuff through Zach, and now with Braden and Trey Kaufman-Renn and Fletcher Lawyer being those focal points offensively, we run a lot of stuff through them, and PJ does a tremendous job. I love seeing PJ and Braden's relationship. They're super close. They're always talking about different things during practices and shoot-arounds and on how they should go about attacking the other team. So really fascinating. Love that PJ was a former point guard, was a great player in his own right, kind of one of those really good complementary players. I'm sure he would have wished he would have got to run as much ball screen pick and roll as Braden gets to now that he's running the show. But PJ was really good playing off some of the guys he played with, Vince Edwards, Isaac Haas, Dakota Mathias, to name a few. Great spot-up shooter, low turnover, a guy that really protected the basketball and also provided good defense at that point guard position. So PJ played for Coach Painter. He knows what Coach Painter likes and wants from that position. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, he's done a great job recruiting as well, because he also can apply those sorts of things from a recruiting angle too.
What is the magic to Braden Smith? What makes that work?
Man, that's one of those things that's hard to quantify, right? That's part of his brilliance. I talked about this last game actually, because he had one of those patented Braden Smith where he drives, jumps in the air, kind of hangs, manipulates the defense while in the air with his eyes, and then ends up whipping a pass across court to an open shooter for a wide open three. And that's part of his brilliance, right? He does so many things that a lot of times, as we've all known growing up playing basketball, following the game for a long time, usually you're telling your players don't jump in the air to pass, right? That's one of the cardinal rules of basketball. You don't want to put yourself in a compromised position. Well, it actually, it doesn't work 100% of the time for him. And he's, of course, had a couple turnovers here or there, maybe by doing that sort of thing. But more often than not, he gets away with it. And not only just gets away with it, his ability to jump in the air to pass and create additional angles and viewpoints for him while he's in the air that I don't think would be available to him if he, was on the ground is part of what makes him so brilliant. He can be under control and make great passes by jump stopping and playing off 2 feet, but he can also make great passes by putting himself in the air and putting himself maybe in what a lot of people would think is a compromised position, but for him, it's actually an advantageous position by what he's able to do in the air, manipulating the defense. And I think his ability to throw those cross-court passes, whether off the dribble or in the air at such an elite level, hitting guys right in the shot pocket, is something that you just don't see very often. He attempts some of those cross-court passes that I think a lot of point guards in their wildest dreams wouldn't even attempt, and he's able to not only attempt them but execute them. And then lastly, I just think, he's got great moxie, and then he's got such a great ability to play under control when he's going at a high speed. And I know for someone, I was not even close to the level of player as Braden Smith, but I know for me as a smaller guard, that was an issue I had, was when you're trying to go full speed and play at a fast pace, it was tough to stay under control and, make the right decisions, see the floor really well. And he's got an uncanny ability to be under control and still see the floor when he's playing at such a fast pace, which I don't think, the great ones can do it, but it's a characteristic that a lot of guys get in trouble, right, when they get going too fast.
Bobby, real quick here, I want to ask you a little bit about the legacy of Braden Smith, because when you talk Boilermaker basketball, you're talking about a lot of great players throughout time, throughout the history of that place. With Braden Smith, I mean, there's still plenty of pages and chapters to be written here this year, but he's the only Big Ten player to have north of 900 assists, and he's chasing after the all-time record in the country of college basketball when it comes to the assists. Where does Braden Smith stack up against some of the Purdue greats as of today?
Well, that's a good question. And, one other final thing I forgot to mention in that previous answer was his ability to shoot the basketball, right? He's a 40% kind of caliber three-point shooter. And so you combine that shooting ability with his passing and his speed and quickness, part of what makes him so special. And you're right, it's what has been able to make him, because of his accomplishments, stack up with some of the Purdue greats of all time. So many people talk about like the Mount Rushmores and things of that nature of different things. And he's fully put himself, I think, in that conversation, right? As someone who you might put up on like a Purdue Mount Rushmore. He's the best point guard in Purdue basketball history. Has got a chance to, win back-to-back Big Ten Player of the Year awards. Got a chance to be a back-to-back first-team All-American, maybe even win National Player of the Year this year if he continues going on at the trend he's going on. And like you said, has a chance to break Bobby Hurley's all-time NCAA assist record. He's currently on pace, I believe, if Purdue is able to play 3 postseason games, which would be between the Big Ten and NCAA tournament, those games combined. So has a chance to do something extremely special. And I trying to think about the all-time Purdue greats, Glenn Robinson obviously comes to mind, Zach Edey, those guys, National Player of the Year. Joe Barry Carroll won a National Player of the Year. Joe Barry Carroll was the first round, was number 1 pick in the NBA draft, but was also a tremendous player in his own right. It's a good conversation. Rick Mount, John Wooden are obviously kind of older guys that are definitely in the mix. But, from what I've seen from Braden Smith, maybe it's recency bias, but I would put him in my Mount Rushmore of all-time Purdue greats.
Well, Bobby, before we let you go, Purdue, as a basketball team, how good is it and how far can it go?
Well, I think we got a quality team this year. Certainly a lot of high expectations coming in, and thus far 15-1 on the season, undefeated in Big Ten play, 5-0. I think the sky's the limit for this team, right? I think all of the goals and aspirations of this team coming into the season, which was, win the Big Ten championship, win a Big Ten tournament championship. And then I think based on how this team has been in recent years and what we've done in the past, get to a Final Four, but ultimately win the national championship is the end goal for this team, and one that I think this team is fully capable of. They got a lot of depth, experience, high-level offensive ability. Can the defense continue to make strides to where it can, be championship level? I think that's probably the biggest question for this team, because I think offensively there's no question we're championship level. We got the number 1 ranked offensive efficiency in the country per KenPom at the moment. And, guard play is usually something super critical in March. And we've certainly got that with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyers. CJ Cox has really come on in the starting lineup, playing extremely good basketball. And so I think Purdue's got all the pieces to win a national championship. Need the bounces to go your way, right? Get a couple good matchups. With the Final Four being in Indianapolis this year, that would certainly seem to be the perfect, script for Purdue to be able to get there and maybe cut down the nets eventually in Indianapolis. But as you guys have seen this year, tons of quality teams across the country, lots of good competition, 2 teams in your guys' state, the Wolverines and the Spartans, really quality programs in their own right. Certainly going to give Purdue all kinds of competition in the Big Ten, along with the Cornhuskers and Illinois and others. So going to be fascinating to see how the Big Ten season plays out. Purdue's certainly got as good a shot as anybody to try to win that Big Ten crown. And then, you try to give yourself the best chance in the big dance by getting as high a seed as you possibly can. And hoping that you get that path that allows you favorable matchups and get hot at the right time,
Well, as always, Bobby, appreciate it. See you along the way.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks. It was great talking with you.
Bobby Riddell from the Purdue Boilermaker Radio Network. Now, Dalton, real quick, here's something that may be a record in the Big Ten as well. Can you name a team that has had back-to-back Big Ten Players of the Year, followed by another guy who could be back-to-back Big Ten Players of the Year?
Ooh, I'm not sure I can.
I don't think it's ever happened. And I'm sure we've never had one so tall and one so short before. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the great stories in college basketball in Nebraska in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. A lot of great stories in the world of college sports, and they all seem to be coming from the Big Ten. You can't talk enough about Indiana football, can you?
No.
One of the great stories of all time. But what about Nebraska basketball? I mean, seriously. It's Nebraska basketball. And we're talking about a team that's won 21 straight over the last couple of seasons, 17-0 this year, and leading the Big Ten. And they're getting wins against really good people. It's not a fluke. We're now being joined by Justin Fromer, who covers the Cornhuskers via the Hastings Tribune. So, what is going on with this basketball team? I've had a chance to see it up close and personal. And here's a take I have just watching them. You ready? I don't think they have great players, but I think they might have a great team. Is that fair?
100%. This Nebraska team is sort of the definition of the sum of its parts is greater than the whole, and each guy has their role, has bought in the role. There might be guys that don't score a lot that have bought into being the rebounders, or like Sam Hoiberg, who's obviously he had 11 points last night in their win against Oregon, but he's more known for his leadership on the court and his dirty work. He had a career high 6 steals against the Ducks. So each guy has just bought into what they need to do for this team to win, and there's no egos on this team, and you see it every single night that they step on the court.
Justin, this Nebraska team is ranked 8th in the country, and if memory serves right, I think that ties for the best ranking this program's ever had in school history. And look, I know you're kind of fresh on the scene in Lincoln and a little bit new to the Nebraska beat, but can you apply the historical context of what we're witnessing there in Lincoln? It feels like this is something that has never been experienced. And again, I'll remind for the listeners, Nebraska's the one Big Ten program that has yet to win a NCAA tournament game. Kind of feels like this year that could certainly change, but the historical context, can you apply why this is so unbelievable?
Yeah, you say it just there, especially just given the overall history of this program, not winning an NCAA tournament game, the fact that this is they have a chance to finish the year with a single digit season losses just for the first time in since the 60s, I believe. And you look at the beginning of Fred Hoiberg's tenure, they were winning 7 games a season and had 15, 16, 17 game losing streaks. And now the fact that he's had the time to build this up to the point where now they're 17-0. They're running Big Ten teams off the court. They're beating blue bloods in the conference, and now are sort of just given what they have ahead, are sort of barreling their way towards a potential 20-0 start when they head into Michigan in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's the entire state has caught just sort of the fever of this team, knowing how special this year is, and just the fact that they may not see something like this again, maybe ever, just given the landscape of this program.
I really thought when Nebraska beat Michigan State at home, that could be the hump game for them, because you always need that one game to sort of, prove a point that you really belong with the upper echelon. And winning that game, a team that scores 80 got 58 whopping points, but won it by 2, and now destroying Oregon. What a great comeback at Indiana. Blew Wisconsin apart. And so at the end of the day, is there one player that makes this whole thing work?
Yeah, well, first just going to what you're talking about with all their different ways that they're winning. That I sort of wrote about that after the game last night. It's just this team is very malleable in the fact that they can win against so many different styles of opponents and adjust what they have to do in order to win. Like, for example, last night, Oregon, they were outsized due to Oregon's size. But it was Stewart and Biddle in the middle, and Rink Mass got saddled with some foul trouble early in the first half. That he sat the final 9 minutes of the first half, and they were able to go on a 14-2 run with him on the bench to end the first half and take command of that game. So they do whatever it takes to win games, and the guy in the middle of all of that is Mass, just because of his ability to score in the post, to stretch the floor from the outside, to rebound, to pass out from different areas of the court. And then the other guy, the biggest transfer they got this past offseason, Price Sanford, has just been a game changer with his outside shooting. He scored 28 points last night against the Ducks, and that's not even his career high or season high this season, because he scored 32 in their win against Illinois.
Justin, we talk about some of the offensive capabilities of the Huskers. One thing that stood out to me is the other end of the floor. Defensively, I think Ken Pom has them top 15 in the country when it comes to the defensive performance. And look, when Fred Hoiberg first rolled into Lincoln, nobody was talking about the mayor in defense when that program started. What they've been able to do to kind of resurrect that end of the floor is kind of amazing.
That stems all the way back to Nate Lenzer, the assistant coach. He's sort of their guy in knowing that their ability to be active on defense and create deflections and turnovers will turn into offensive transition points and ability to go out and run. So they've like I've said, I mean, they've just bought into whatever they have to do to win. And they sort of know that it starts on the defensive side, because there have been moments this year where the shots haven't been falling, where things have gotten stagnant a little bit in the half court. You look at some of their mid-major games where first half against North Dakota, first half against New Hampshire, first half against Winthrop, South Carolina Upstate, all those games in the first half were just very ugly contests. And then they regrouped at halftime, got it going on the defensive end, and then it turned into routes in the second half. So they know that's sort of where it starts for this group.
Well, Sam Hoiberg is not going to be an All-American. He won't be the most valuable player in the Big Ten. But what a story he is. Goes from a walk-on. Coach had to play his son because he was all beat up a couple years ago. Would anybody have guessed he would become this quality player that he's become?
No. I mean, when he got to Nebraska, I mean, he was, like you said, he was a walk-on guy that was essentially unplayable. And he's developed his body. I mean, you can see him if you look at pictures from when he first started college to now. I mean, he got himself jacked, and he's definitely spent a lot of hours in the weight room. Definitely has worked on his game. His outside shot has improved tremendously this year. And you talk about where it starts on defense. That's he's sort of the heart and soul of that, with his ability to create steals and generate deflections and just create havoc on that end of the court. Price Sanford after the game last night just called him a pest, and that's really what he is. He's sort of that Aaron Kraft type breed where he's just going to make life miserable for teams in the half court, and he's sort of making his living in his senior year doing that.
I remember hating Aaron Kraft, but always wishing he was on my team.
That's exactly what Sam Hoiberg is. Every coach that we've talked to after games, he's one of the guys that gets brought up as one of their favorite players, and one of the reasons Nebraska's winning. Tom Izzo called Sam Hoiberg one of his favorite players in the Big Ten because of what he does to affect winning.
Well, enjoy the ride, Justin.
Thank you.
Some insight about this Nebraska basketball team from Justin Fromer from the Hastings Tribune. You know, it's interesting. Common sense says, Dalton, Nebraska's not going to win the Big Ten in basketball. Common sense says Indiana's not going to win the Big Ten in football and have a Heisman Trophy winner.
Look, there's a lot that's kind of goofy and wrong with college sports today. I think we made a lot of change for the worse. But when you have stories about Indiana football competing the way they have and Nebraska basketball competing the way they have, that part is actually really cool about today's college sports.
It's awesome. Well, when we come back with more of the sports life, our parting shots in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to michigancommunityaction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Anybody ready for a burger?
I'm State Fire Marshal Rich Miller, reminding everyone to think safety first when it comes to outdoor grilling, whether it's charcoal or gas. Never overload your grill with food. Excess fat and grease will create large flames. Grill outdoors and never inside or in a garage. Never leave a grill unattended and always keep a fire extinguisher nearby. For more tips on safe grilling, visit the Bureau of Fire Services website at michigan.gov/BFS.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. We've had a good show. We've hit a lot of topics. And so it is now time for our parting shots.
And by the way, if you missed any of those topics, give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. We're called at Sports Life Now. Give us a follow. You'll see everything posted there. We led the show off, actually, with celebrating the Wisconsin win over Michigan. At the time, second-ranked Michigan. The final score there was 91-88. I wanted to bring out something I saw also floating around on X. Jeff Borzello, who's a great college basketball writer and also turns out researcher. He pointed out that according to ESPN's research, 4 Big Ten teams in the last 30 years, all right, 4 Big Ten teams have been unranked and beaten a top 2 team on the road. So if you follow all that, there have been 4 times that a scenario like this has happened, 3 of which have been done by Wisconsin. So the Badgers are just giant slayers. If they come on the road to your place and you're ranked in the top 2, look out.
Cancel the game.
That's right.
Sorry,
Somebody's
can't play.
got to be sick. Something's got to happen there.
Well, my parting shot goes to Indiana basketball. I mean, we've been talking so much about the football program. And historically, it's a basketball school, right? Mm-hmm. Bobby Knight, Branch McCracken, all those guys, all the national championships. So I took a look at it, and the last time Indiana basketball won a Big Ten title was the 15-16 season. Tom Crean was the coach, and he was only there one more season, and then they fired him.
Yep.
So since they have fired Tom Crean, and since Bobby Knight was relieved in 2000, Indiana has made 6 coaching changes. That is the most of any school in the Big Ten. So the model of stability and championships is sort of wavered a little bit. And it's been 10 years between titles.
You know, earlier this week, Michigan State and Indiana played. Tom Izzo has seen 8 different Indiana head basketball coaches on the men's side.
Do you think he knows them all by name?
Probably.
So with that, that's a wrap for our show. And as always, we appreciate you joining us. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Live is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton, I'm Will Teeman, and thanks for your time.